How we doing, everyone? How we doing, everyone? As I forgot to turn the mic on. Hopefully it's on. We having any fun yet? This is our last module for the semester. Speaking of the semester and speaking of things kind of winding their ways down, this being our last module. No, it is not November 2017. Looking forward and planning next year, I was. So here, July 11th, we have an assignment due. Here, July 13th, we have an assignment due. Paper, journal, if I'm not mistaken. I appreciate the nudge. I forgot to put the folders up for you to start dropping these things in there. The folders are up. You guys should be all good. If you have any explicit questions about those two particular assignments, some people have been emailing me questions. I have no problem answering questions. Scarcity. It may be the last module, but I tend to go back and forth whether this is the most important module. Maybe not most important module, most interesting module, most powerful module. To me, reciprocity and scarcity are two of the most powerful of the six. Particularly because you can imbue reciprocity and you can imbue scarcity very quickly. You know, this is not necessarily a build-up over time. This could be something that in a sentence or two, 10 to 15 seconds on the high side, you can imbue scarcity and want someone to want it. So let's just do a very short exercise and conversation about scarcity. I collect baseball cards. This is my 1959 Topps Mickey Mantle. I got this card when I was in 4th grade. I've had it for a very long time. Recently I got it graded. Also some of my other favorite cards. I have a rookie Carl Yastrzemski. Luckily this one's a graded 7. Here's a 1961 Willie Mays. Love baseball cards. Reminds me of my youth. Didn't know that they would be worth this much. Now, before you go bonkers and say, holy Christmas, and you look at this number, this is a graded 10 PSA card. And also, it's from a Venezuelan printing when Topps did a Latin American printing. This one's really rare. When I sent to get it graded, I was hoping for something like this, or something like this, something like this, something like this. Something in that range. Maybe this. Well, unfortunately, I came back with a PSA 4, which is more like this, or this, or this. You know. It's my card. I love it. It's slightly off center, which is why they gave it to me that way. It's got the rarer white back, too, but I don't know. I was hoping for something more along these ranges. But, hey, this is a piece of paper from 1959. Why are you trying to tell me that this thing's worth $300? You know? And it's because there's not that many of these around. It is scarce. And when something is scarce, we value it more. We value it more. And, you know, I actually just looked in the references. I keep coming back to this book. I don't know if you want to read this thing or not, but it's all loss aversion. We feel more pains towards losses than we do gains. Okay? And earlier in this, it was particularly when we were talking about psychological reactance theory earlier. I mentioned this book where we talked about psychological reactance theory. I forgot that this one brought it up as well. You know, scarcity, because we don't like to lose freedoms or things along those lines, scarcity is something that we pay attention to. Scarcity is something that we value more. And to be honest with you, diamonds are very, very pretty rocks. They really are. Yes, they're hard to find, and the supply of them are controlled. But the way we value diamonds, and that's us as humans put the value on diamonds, is something, it's a construct that we create. Diamonds really should not be as valuable as they are. They really should not. We do it. We decide what the price of the diamond should be. You know, that is scarcity. Now, let's see if we can get into some of these questions. With respect to scarcity in economics, or economic scarcity, how does our changing access to products and service evolve in the scarcity principle? Well, if you look at scarcity, we're talking about the downward sloping classic economics supply and demand curves. And there's a number of questions along the same question here from the class that we will talk about. And I'll do more detail as we go through. But, you know, we will pay more for something we perceive as more scarce. You know. And what happens is, if we look at marketing in the 4 Ps, price, place, which is really like channels and supply chain, product, which is more like branding, price, I'm forgetting a P. God, that's embarrassing. All the marketing mix, the 4 Ps, promo, advertising, I'm sorry. God, I forgot. Particularly the first 3, you know, if we have a product that is more scarce, those things influence the branding, the retail location, the quality, which is the product, and how you advertise it. You know, if it's something ubiquitous like Budweiser or Coke, it's not scarce. You advertise it more. But if it's something like a Rolex, you don't see Super Bowl Rolex commercials, because that would dilute the brand image, quality, and all the things that would make it seem more available as opposed to scarce. You would limit the places you can buy a particular Rolex. The story relates well to the classic 1975 cookie study in this book, where they put the 2 cookie jars, 10 cookies in one jar, 2 cookies in another. They had a taste test. Of course, the 2 cookie jars, they tasted better. Okay? Would the rumored stories of cookies being used in airline pricing strategies be an example of the scarcity principle? Perhaps. I mean, there's other factors involved here with regards to how much you're paying for the airline and how many other things they're trying to nickel and dime you with here. But it could. Sidebar comment on this question. There was an airline that, and it escapes me at the moment, but it no longer exists. But it was a Southwest-like company that sort of had like business class only planes, but they were somewhat affordable. You know, think of it as sort of like the a slight premium, but not business class prices, right? And they were 2x2. All leather seats, comfortable, you know. During the flight, they baked cookies during the flight. And the whole plane smelled like cookies. And you would get your own hot, gooey chocolate chip cookie on the flight. And it was like this little perk that made that experience a wow. It was just a cookie, you know. But it smelled good and it tasted good. Can scarcity of an object and that status of an item create even a more powerful synergistic effect? Well, what happens is that the scarcity then starts this train leaving the station. And the scarcity then creates status. You know, there was a topic talk in here about Kyle Jenner and her makeup, and they didn't make that much of it, and like There's all kinds of aftermarket nutty eBay prices for it just because it's scarce at the moment. Well, I think that scarcity is helping raise the status of a particular makeup brand that's, coming out of nowhere, basically. But the scarcity starts the process. And if you want something to be of status, not everyone can have it. It can't be available everywhere. You have to help make it scarce. Okay? Clearly, we're going to talk about cars in a little bit, right? If you look at a Rolls Royce, yes, it's a $400,000 car, so not that many people can afford it anyway. But if you look at a Toyota Camry, from start to finish, you can build a Camry in 18 hours. On the high side, paint, the whole thing. Right? A Rolls Royce takes about 12 weeks. And the manufacturing process of assembling a Rolls Royce from start to finish, hand stitching and then the wood and the sanding and all that other stuff, right? Well, guess what? That limits the supply, that raises the cost. These things kind of all work together. They all kind of, So here we're going back to the economics, and we're talking about tickets and concerts and stadiums. Do you think that artists and concert venue personnel will try to fix this ticket scarcity issue in the future? All right. So basically, this is again supply and demand. When Beyonce's been touring all summer in her Formation tour, the tour is sold out. Every ticket was sold for the first time once. There's a lot of innovation, if you want to call it innovation, happening in the ticket industry. I have a lot of friends that work for Live Nation and have worked in this industry and that kind of thing, so I have a little bit of insight here. Believe it or not, all the tickets get sold. It is a sellout. But then what happens is all the aftermarket companies that get their hands on the initial sale, let's just say, I'll make a name up, StubHub gets 100 seats to the Formation tour, right? And they are 3 times the face value they were when they originally went on sale. But heck, they have them and people are willing to pay a higher price. They only sell 70 of those 100 seats at the higher price. But they would rather sell the 70 tickets at the higher price than sell all 100 at a lower price and make less money. So you may go to events and you may see stadiums empty. I mean, I was pretty disappointed when I went to Philadelphia to see the U.S. men's national team play, where the Philadelphia Eagles play. It was a Saturday night. It was a wonderful experience. 51,000 fans were there, but I wanted a sellout. I wanted 70,000 people there. And there were whole sections of the stadium completely empty. And Copa America decided to charge a higher price and have less people in the stadium than it would be to charge a lower price and try to sell the thing out. And they probably made more money doing what they did, but the experience wasn't as good for the fans because the place should have been, it was loud, it was cool, but I mean it should have been exploding. Where if you've ever been to an Eagles game, you kind of know what that feels like. Given scarcity on supply leads to irrational buying behaviors, a fundamental principle in behavioral economics, can companies employ consistent scarcity strategies to drive sales, or is it a limited tactic given consumers or customers return to rational buying behaviors all the time? I think this McRib thing was an accident. They had it, limited supply, I think this was an accident. So I don't want to necessarily talk about McRib and McDonald's, because this is a ubiquitous type scenario, type product, and it's really difficult for these kinds of companies, the Coca-Cola kinds of companies, to imbue scarcity consistently. All right. Where you can imbue scarcity is when you employ the marketing mix and the 4 Ps to make a more premium product with fewer locations selling the product, and therefore you can drive sales using that as a strategy. Okay. I don't think if you're trying to be everything to everyone, like a McDonald's or a Coke or a Budweiser, that you should mess around with scarcity all that much. I really don't. In your head, here's another example. I love cars. United States, fairly large country in the world, fairly wealthy company in the world. Ferrari is one of the most premier sports cars you can get your hands on if you have the money to get one of those cars. Well, guess what? How many Ferrari dealerships do you think there are in the United States? Put a number in your head. There's only 33 Ferrari dealerships in the United States, or at least 33 the last time I checked. There's only 33. Well, guess what? If there's only 33, then it's not that easy to get your hands on a Ferrari. Moreover, even if you wanted to buy a new Ferrari and you put down a $20,000 deposit, you're not going to see that thing for 12 to 18 months. You can't walk into a Ferrari dealership and buy a new Ferrari. They're all sold. They have some there that you can look at and test drive, but you're not going to be able to walk in. They're sold. They're gone. I mean, right now, Tesla is a young company, right? So Tesla has manufacturing issues, challenges. They're only delivering 70 to 80% of the capacity that they should be delivering given their demand. Because of that, Teslas are a bit more scarce right now. They're a bit more special, and consumers are favoring them more. The Model 3, whenever it comes out, they already have 400,000 pre-orders. People put a $1,000 deposit down. You know, Tesla can only make about 100,000 cars a year. I mean, if everybody gets their pre-order and you want to buy a 3 Series, their Model 3, you're waiting 4 to 5 years before you can even get one. Kind of crazy. Would you use social media as a primary communication strategy around scarcity marketing tactics? You can use social media around scarcity. You can alert that there is now limited supply, or something's going out of stock, or there's only 100 tickets left. So it can be part of the promotion P of revolving around scarcity. We're going to talk more about social media in some few questions. How often do we see the scarcity principle backfire in marketing? Very often. Because companies that are more ubiquitous in nature think that they can pull the scarcity principle off. You know, when you watch a McDonald's commercial and then like 20 seconds into the 30-second commercial and they say, for a limited time offer, you get da-da-da-da. And all of a sudden, because it's McDonald's and because we're seeing a commercial and because it's like their 100th offer of the year, that limited time offer has no scarcity impact to us whatsoever. We're going to talk about salespeople and scarcity in a couple future questions, so I'm going to hold off on that one. Using limited editions as a scarcity technique in marketing, I assume the results are not sustainable in the long term unless a company continues to maintain the strategy, coming out with new and different limited editions. Well, we're in agreement. I'm actually pretty upset at Topps because they kind of ruined collecting for kids. You know, and please forgive me for ranting. When I was a kid, you know, for any given year, Topps made one set only. And then some years they sort of had like an after season traded series where players that got traded or rookies would show up like later in the year, and there'd be like a small 100, you know, the traded pack, and that was kind of neat. But Topps moved from targeting towards kids and collecting cards and growing up with it as a thing to limited editions, to the point where the last time I checked, and you can go to Topps.com and download their Excel spreadsheet for their checklists. Last time I checked 2 years ago, they released 52 sets in 1 year. Who the heck is going to collect 52 sets? And there are all these like limited cards that are randomly put in certain packs, and there's basically 12 edition sets, and then there's sets within sets. They made it so complicated that although there is scarcity all over the place, it's too hard to follow to see what's scarce and what's not scarce. It loses its effect. Regarding censorship, this is also a long-term sustainable form of the scarcity principle. Historically, in cases such as in East Germany, the censorship was not sustainable. Even with the U.S. restricting travel to places such as Cuba, do we see different effectiveness in marketing versus the political arena? No, scarcity is scarcity. I mean, East Germans, way back in the day, not that I ever visited East Germany, but if you had Levi's way back in the day and you could get into East Germany, you could sell those jeans for, a couple $100 easy. They were in such high demand. Granted, this is a product, but I mean, we have in China censorship all over the place, and a lot of people are very creative in subverting how to get around the censorship of information by the government digitally. Now, I have not been to Cuba, but I have grown up with this fascination with Cuba. All right. Granted, I speak Spanish, and my wife's from Puerto Rico, and I knew a lot about the area. When I did my master's work, I actually did like NAFTA and Cuba and all kinds of stuff like that. But I mean, it's almost the same thing as how he started the chapter. He's not a practicing Mormon, and the temple was going to be only open for a few days when they built the new temple. He wanted to see it because he knew that he would never get a chance to see it again, but outside of never being a chance to see it again, there wasn't anything special for him. It's not his religion. There actually are more beautiful places of religious worship elsewhere in the world and even in Arizona. But he got that tug of scarcity and he wanted to go. And I think Cuba, for a lot of people in the United States, has this allure of, we've been looking at it so long, we've been seeing the photos for so long, and now it's finally starting to open up a little bit. But then you're going to get there and you're going to say, well, this isn't all that special. Do we see a difference in marketing? Okay, we answered that question. My question for the professor would be, how do you see online sales and shopping affecting Black Friday, and how people react to the concepts of scarcity? Are retail stores faced with more creative ways of creating marketing campaigns with the creation of online shopping? Yes is the answer to the second half of this question. If I'm not mistaken, I bet you of the 16 of us in class that I am not the only Prime member in class. Some of you have to be an Amazon Prime customer, just given flat out statistics here. And if you're a Prime customer, then you knew we had a Midsummer July Prime Monday, was it? Was it Monday this week? Which is a Black Friday-like sale. Amazon only does this once every blue moon, But the Black Friday of the day after Thanksgiving, now they're doing like Cyber Monday and Wednesday, and the retailers are killing the scarcity options, and they always used to do it for a loss leader tactic. They wanted people to come to the store, but now with digital, we don't have to come to the store. We can just get stuff shipped to us. Retailers are gonna have to become more creative. And in my head, and some of you know from all the conversations we had last semester, you tend to do this with your more loyal customers. You tend to do this with ones in your CRM system that will value particular items. That's what I would do. Scarcity is the last tactic we learned. You can call it a tactic. I think it's bigger than a tactic. I think it's a strategy, but semantics. I found that those 6 influences can be used together. Absolutely, positively, yes. If there is one nugget that you get from this entire semester, is that these 6 tactics are not individual silos. Many of them overlap. And if we were creative, I know I can do it, but now that you've had the experience, you probably can create some kind of a message, campaign, persuasive talk to your coworkers that uses all 6 at the same time. Or all 6 in some kind of a weave set of succession. Some of them are repeated or even contradictory. Well, repeated, yes. Contradictory, I'm not going to agree with you there. I don't think I can do that. For example, commitment and reciprocity can work together. All 6 of them can work together and help each other out. But in my opinion, social proof and authority are too similar. But there are similarities between social proof and authority. And a social proof can give you authority, but a social proof can come from an authority figure, but many times social proof isn't coming from an authority. You know, my example of sitting on the New Jersey Turnpike and seeing that one person making the illegal thing to go over into the truck lanes to avoid the accident that's in the car lanes. Okay, that's a social proof. You going into your Facebook feed or you going into your Twitter feed, Twitter's not as good, going into your Snapchat feed, guess what? Those people are not authority figures that are in your Facebook feed, but you are basically letting them do social proof to you. So there are similarities. I already gave you the ranking in my head. And the ranking is in my head is based on time or how quickly you can use one of these techniques. You know, social proof you can use quickly. Authority you can use quickly. Reciprocity you can use quickly. Scarcity you can use quickly. But liking and commitment we cannot. You know, they need to be built over time. Commitment and reciprocity quickly. Commitment and consistency over time. Social proof quick. Liking not quick. Authority quick. Scarcity quick. Those were my baseball cards. Do you think toy companies make hot ticket items toys scarce on purpose in order to generate more interest or raise the prices? No. Absolutely positively not. Toy companies accidentally have stuff go scarce. Toy companies want to sell as much as they possibly can. As much as they possibly can. This is more of a manufacturing scenario. You know, they can't keep up with supply and demand. You know, do you see, you know, because most toy scenarios, pretty much anything you go into Toys R Us or Walmart or Target, they're in stack it high, let it fly mode. You know, now if you go into a boutique toy store, if you go into one that's like a collector's toy store, well then guess what? Okay, then there's a little scarcity stuff that could be going on, but no, not toys. Do you think it really cannot keep up with supply and demand? Do you think Cialdini's principle is applying to more serious global issues of water scarcity? Now, we talked about psychological reactance theory. I tell you, if you want to see everyone really go bananas on the planet we call Earth, okay, if we ever pollute our water or our water starts completely disappearing for us and water becomes the most scarce resource in the world to the level of diamonds, we're in deep, deep, deep trouble. Deep trouble. I don't think the human race, and forgive me for being bombastic, but we cannot survive without water. Humans cannot go more than 2.5 days without putting water in their body. You can go a week, 10, 14 days without putting food in your body. But your organs without liquid will shut down. They won't work and you will die. You are a big glob of liquid. And without water, without liquid, we die. We cannot survive. We take this, we so granted, it's so ubiquitous, it's no big deal. Man, but what we really should do, and we had a circumstance earlier in the financial meltdown where all of a sudden energy became scarce and we got innovation on solar and electric cars and all those things. If you want to make something more interesting for business to go after, make it more scarce. Make it more costly. And then if there's more profitability, people will come in and try to find solutions. I mean, Tesla is, very creative. They create, unfortunately, it's expensive, but they have a $25,000 home battery. Okay? This device has batteries in it, and once you charge it, you can go 24, 36, 48 hours, whatever, without having to plug the thing in again. Well, guess what? If you put solar panels on your roof and the home battery in your garage, you could take your house off the grid. Because during the day, the battery charges. And during the night, you'd use energy from the battery. And you literally could go through a 24-hour kind of a cycle where you could be completely off the grid. There are companies in New England, Green Mountain Energy, who are trying to buy every home battery they possibly can, and they're almost giving them away for free, almost, solar panels and all, installation and all. The energy company wants you to, it's a 25-year contract or something like that. It's kind of like a mortgage. You guarantee to pay them $100 a month in the word I can't say. Perpetuity? There it is. If one of the most expensive things that happens in New England is where all these energy companies lose all their money is there's a storm and the power lines go down and all the people are without power and it's really expensive to rent all those trucks and get people from North Carolina to drive up in the trucks to fix the power lines and all that other stuff. Well, if you have home batteries and solar panels, and guess what? You don't need the power lines. If they go down, you just wait 3 months before you fix them when winter's over, because everybody in your area has got a home battery and solar panels, and they're off the grid. Think about I love to think about things differently. How do you think, in a lot of cases, that the scarcity tactic is short-term growth tactic for brands? There are companies that use this as a short-term growth tactic. The problem is if it's not part of the strategic long-term definition of the brand, Rolls-Royce, Tiffany, then guess what? You're actually going to hurt the brand longer term. Where a brand used to be more of a premium brand, and now look at Tommy Hilfiger. A number of years ago, Tommy Hilfiger would be talked about in the same level as Polo or Lacoste. It's not anymore. It's not. They didn't stick with it. They went to the TJ Maxx's of the world. I'm not a fan of creating products with such exclusivity that people don't have a chance to purchase them. Okay. There are a lot of products where exclusivity is needed because of quality and availability. But there are tons of products, and someone's calling, and I don't care who's calling. Sorry, I forgot to take the phone out of my office. Feels like it's some kind of an ethical boundary. It's an ethical boundary if you are trying to use the tactic to specifically deceive. Then it's an ethical boundary. Because it's still legal.
This is Julie calling from Morristown Hardware. I just want to let you know that your screen is back and ready for pickup. Any questions? 856-235-0800. Thank you.
Okay. It feels like it's crossing some kind of an ethical boundary. Legally, they can do it. Ethically, it's not ethical. If something is scarce, then it's okay to use the scarcity principle. If something isn't scarce, it's not ethically correct to use the exclusivity principle. It's very straightforward. We have... Where's the salesperson one? I thought it was coming up here. Salespeople tend to use the scarcity principle too much. And the problem is that they call on the same clients, and every time at the end of the month they're using the scarcity principle, no one will think anything that they have is scarce anymore. Yes, companies have been questions about their ethics based on this approach. We have Apple actually gets questioned substantially on the idea of their products being a little bit more scarce. And you guys know that I'm a big Apple geek, okay? You know. And when the watch came out, it truly was scarce. And the fact of the matter is Apple screwed up. Inside of this, when you get a message, they call it the taptic engine, okay? It's what makes your phone vibrate when you have something. It vibrates. Well, the taptic engine in the watch is a little bit more complicated than the taptic engine in your phone, right? They had 2 suppliers because they didn't want to put all their eggs in one basket. They had 2 suppliers to make the taptic engine. They created a product ramp that they would have enough parts to make all their products in a timely fashion. And one of the taptic engines from one of their suppliers was faulty. And they had to eat that. They made the decision not to release or manufacture Apple watches because they didn't want to put parts in it that they knew wasn't up to the quality standards of an Apple product. And because of that, when Apple Watch came out in March, you'd be ordering one and they wouldn't ship until mid to late May. And it was particularly noticeable on the stainless steel. The stainless steel, the regular ones. This is the sport one. You could have gotten one of the sport ones much more quicker. But the stainless steel ones and the gold ones, but not that many people bought the gold ones anyway, they were like 3 months back ordered. Apple, when they changed the form factor historically, it's a slower ramp up than when things are not. Like this is a 6, right? And the 6 came out, and Apple probably did pretty good with this. They sold 70 million units, and supply and demand was pretty much where it should have been. Apple's pretty good at meeting their, they really don't want to leave money on the table, as they call it. They really don't want to have over demand because Apple doesn't change the price, as with concert tickets. They want to have all the product available when all the demand is there because that's when they're going to make the most money. And most companies are like this. But technical products are tough to do. They really are. And it's not just Apple. We have other companies that have the same issue too. The Amazon Echo and its dot little thingamajigger, that's actually been in really high demand this summer too. And Amazon only manufactured so many of them. They didn't expect a demand like this. And it's not like you can easily ramp up the manufacturing. It's like, okay, make more iPhones. Well, guess what? In order to get 70 million units out the door in September 2015, there's 160 parts in here that are sourced from 69 different countries or something along those lines. Well, all those parts from all those countries to China for assembly and shipped around the world 70 million times. If you're not doing that with 9 to 12 to 18 months in advance, then guess what? You can't you can't sell those kind of numbers. You can't have that kind of supply chain. Apple gets criticized, for stuff like this, and to be honest with you, it's not something they're really trying to do. Would it be unethical for Costco to put an asterisk on product that were not gone forever? Absolutely, positively, yes. That would be unethical, and we kind of talked about that in this question. Where is the ethical line when manufacturing scarcity? An example of the book, like an appliance salesman. Well, this actually isn't a manufacturing example. This is more of a salesperson example. But, manufacturing, Ferrari can only build about 2,000, I'm going to make the number up, 2,000 or 3,000 cars a year. That's it. That's all they can do. Their workers only work so many hours, so many days, and it takes X number of days to build a Ferrari. They're all handmade. Okay? Let's say it's 2 weeks to build a Ferrari. Well, guess what? Given the number of workers they have, given the size of their manufacturing facility, they can only manufacture so many cars. So there is this natural scarcity when it comes to a Ferrari. And it works when it's a Ferrari because there's only 33 dealerships and there's only so many cars and there's only so many people that can buy one of those kinds of cars. Is it true that scarcity is a big... Okay. All right, dug that. Cialdini's done the psychological reactance theory. I've already brought this up. How does scarcity relate to the tragedy of the commons? Let me take a break real quick. Let me check something real quick. All right, I'm back. Before, I wanted to answer this question properly, and I wanted to double check that I had tragedy in the commons correctly in my head. So I just did a quick check. I'm coming back. Tragedy of the commons is, when something is available for everyone and gets depleted. For instance, I love sushi. I love tuna. Tuna is tragically being overfished. Okay? Therefore, tuna is becoming more scarce, and it is also becoming higher priced. And also the quality is declining. So here's an example where it could be the case that now the scarcity and the rising price of tuna means more people are going to go fish for it. Well, guess what? It's already declining in availability as it is, to the point where it's going to be worth so much, everybody's going to fish for it, then there's not going to be any left, and the whole tuna market is going to disappear forever. So a common good then becomes something overexploited. Tragedy of the commons. This is a very nasty, vicious cycle. This is something that ozone, water pollution, oil, a lot of seafoods, particularly, we're looking for sustainable, healthy fish, like salmon down in Chile or sea bass. We're trying to find foods that don't need the pesticides and the amount of water for them to grow in soil. Scarcity does, unfortunately, accelerate this effect. We have to be careful. Maybe if we put this back in the political arena, this is where governments have to step in. When I was younger, I loved to go fishing. I still love to go fishing. But we used to go fishing for flounder. And there was no regulations on flounder. You know, whatever you caught, you kept. If the flounder was this big and you wanted to keep it for bait, you could keep it for bait. Now, the flounder's got to be 17 inches for you to keep it, and you're only allowed to have 3 per day, something like that. So now you could go fishing and you could catch 30 fish that day, but you might not be able to keep only one. Because, you know, a 15-inch fish, which was a big fish when I was a kid, is now too small for you to keep. And this is part of the New Jersey game, da-da-da-da-da-da. And because of that, the flounder are getting bigger. They're spawning more, instead of some not even spawning in their lifetime. And the flounder stocks are coming back. When I was a kid, I never saw a striped bass. They were so rare. They were so overfished. And then they made the 36-inch limit. And now, you can go fishing right now, and you could go catch striped bass pretty much anywhere in New Jersey. Where, you know, it was, if someone caught one once a week, that was a really big deal. Love fishing. All right. Some more social media stuff as we wrap up this module. Especially for younger people, the idea of FOMO, or the fear of missing out, has become an accepted part of human behavior. And the scarcity principle cannot be avoided. All right, let's hold that thought there. I'm not sure FOMO and scarcity are the same thing. This is from someone who knows a lot about scarcity, and within the last couple months really started digging into FOMO. I mean, FOMO is you checking your phone all the time when it vibrates, or checking Facebook, or checking Twitter, or checking something, because you have the fear of missing out. But there's nothing scarce about that. Twitter's always there. Facebook's always there. Those messages don't erase. The only social network that has some kind of scarcity built into the design of the site is Snapchat. Those snaps can disappear. You can only have so many snaps. They time out. I heard, I was listening to a podcast this morning when I was doing yard work. Gary Vaynerchuk was, you know, as much as he loves Snapchat, you know, if he gets 200 snaps in a particular day and doesn't get through them all, they disappear and he doesn't see them, you know, and he's actually kind of freaked out about that. Do you think that scarcity principle will be used more in future with the shifting towards, I can't avoid it, so I might as well give in? I'm not you know, I can see this idea of FOMO being scarcity-like, but I don't see the, particularly in social, what is scarce? You know, this is a sidebar comment, you know, in the advertising industry within social. I mean, advertising used to have scarcity built into it, you know. The magazine only had one back cover. There was only one issue produced a week. There was only so many covers, back covers for the year. There were so many centerfolds that you could do a 2-ad spread in Business Week a year. And guess what? You know, there was once we had digital ads, there's no scarcity there. There's none at all. But when it comes to the social networks themselves, you know, your feed is always your feed. It's not going anywhere. I mean, you really can look at every tweet someone sends to you. You know, we already talked about Snapchat a little bit, how it's slightly different. FOMO, I see as a more cultural force that we want to feed that addiction in our head of checking in and checking. I don't know if that's the scarcity principle. That is why what I'm investigating. Is it the same thing? one trend that has been occurring recently is the move towards a more customized product offerings by companies. I'm a fan. It's called mass customization. Some of you heard me rant about this last semester. Is the next trend in scarcity the upfront offering to build something scarce rather than limited edition number or deadline scenarios? Well, I don't think mass customization is scarcity. You know, I would love to have running shoes sized Dr. Dano as opposed to running shoes sized whatever the heck they are. You know, I would want something tailored to segments of me. And this is really a customer relationship management question and not necessarily a persuasion thing. If you have the data to be able to customize product offerings, you know, how awesome would that be? How awesome would it be for you to have a 3D printer in your garage? Insert company name here, ASICS, and somehow or another they send you the code to be able to manufacture size Dr. Dano in your garage. Now, sneakers are a complicated product. There's multiple elements, but is that really all that far-fetched? Does seeing similar numbers, similar others with certain freedoms that you do not possess have the same effect as having freedoms taken away? No. Freedoms that you've had and taking away is more powerful. No ifs, ands, or buts. No question. I mean, if some people have freedoms that you don't possess, it does make you want it. But it still does not have the same effect as something that you've already had and it taken away. It's a good question. With so much competition and business catching into more nowadays quickly, does scarcity change quite often, and how business can avoid this to keep enticing customers? Okay, this is another very good question. And although the question revolves around scarcity, I'm going to answer this question in terms of innovation. Okay. I don't care what technological or sociological innovation you have that you are cutting edge in today's day and age, with as fast and as aggressive as competition is, you will not be able to hold on to that innovation for very long. Now, who knows what very long is? Could it be 18 months? Could it be 24 months? Could it be 3 years? Could it be 5 years? Whatever that number is, you will not be able to sustain it. I do not believe that there exists a sustainable technological innovation out there. Whatever you have will be either copied at a cheaper price, or someone will see what you're doing and innovate it better. The only thing that companies can do is to be externally oriented towards customers and competition. This is called market orientation. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then your sustainable competitive strategy is always to stay ahead. So whatever any innovation that you have in July of 2015 that you know you're 6 to 12 months ahead of your competitors, they're spending all their time catching you. You're spending all your time trying to hit the next hurdle before they do. That's all you got. That's all there is. Now, I know this doesn't answer the question as much in terms of scarcity, but scarcity can only be a particular product that is in limited supply. And we could talk about that in terms of natural resources. But guess what? Even Rolls-Royce is getting nipped at substantially in that cat. I mean, Bentley's doing a very, very good job. There are other companies out there that are doing a very, very good job. You know, brand is not enough. How about that? Is there a contradiction between the authority principle and the scarcity principle? No. No. No, 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 no. I don't see it. Just like government is an authority, but for attaining freedom, people can be against the government. No, I don't. No. It needs to be an authority. No. No, I don't see it. I really don't. Authority is a persuasion technique. Scarcity is a persuasion technique. You can use these two together. You really can. You can be an authority that imbues scarcity. You cannot be an authority and you can still imbue scarcity. You could not have scarcity and you could still use the authority principle. Cialdini discusses the influence of powers of scarcity of many down to one. Do you think that the influence of the power of scarcity work in reverse, one to many? Or do you think that scarcity is in reverse is different? Scarcity in reverse is different. You know, scarcity works. Wow. Scarcity works when the number is small. Okay? Scarcity in reverse isn't scarcity anymore. And at the same time, scarcity now I'm counter-arguing myself in my head. Cialdini discussing the power of the scarcity of many down to one. Do you think that the influence of the power of scarcity works and it's the same in reversed, one to many? Hold on. Let me think about this. All right, folks. I'm going to read. I wanted to double check this to make sure that I got it right. So I'm on page 231. I'm in the back. I'm in the summary. The scarcity principle is most likely to hold under two optimizing conditions. First, scarce items are highlighted in value when they are newly scarce. That is, we value things that have become recently restricted more than those we have restricted all along. Second, we are most attracted to scarce resources when we compete with them with others. So, I'm thinking, reading that, my initial knee-jerk reaction was right. One to many. That's where I would go with that. Double check. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. This is going to be our last video for the semester. However, it's not going to be the last video forever. More on that later. Have a good one. Thanks. Send me questions.